Okay, now we're getting into some of the fun bits. This is actual programming. This has less to do with the document object model, more than it has to do with actual programming fundamentals with a thing called an object-oriented programming language, an OOP. Now, while this sounds kind of complex, and at first it's going to seem a little complex, really all it is a way for you to cluster your variables and functions together to keep your code nicely organized and to reduce code duplication. So remember when we created a person object in the object video? We created something like this. Name is equal to Caleb and the age is equal to 30. Yada, 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 yada. Something like that. That's what we ended up creating. This is basically object-oriented programming because we've got an object here and then we have object.property and that returns Caleb. Person.age is equal to 30. There's actually a nicer way of writing this in more modern JavaScript, and that is through this idea of a class. And the nice thing about a class is basically you can take your entire person object and you can copy and paste it over and over again. You can give it default values so that it creates basically this object for you with just a single line of code. You just have to write out that functionality first. So let's take a look at this. We've got class person, and this is essentially what your syntax looks like. It's just keyword class, whatever your class name is. Generally, it starts with a capital P, but really that's up to you. And then in here, we have functions and variables called methods and properties. So we could have a function in here called make sound, and all this is going to do is console.log meow. Now to instantiate or to start a class like this, because this code may have been executed in the background, but it is not actually stored anywhere. Now this is sort of what it would look like if we wrote a regular function in here. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. We don't need it because JavaScript is smart enough to know, hey, this is not a variable, this is a function. And now to actually instantiate this, to start this class, we actually have to store this into some sort of variable. So we could do const Caleb is equal to new person. So this is our syntax here. We've got keyword class, whatever our class name is, that matches here. Opening and closing curly braces, and then we just have a simple function in here. It's a function inside of an object. Classes are objects. And so we call this a method. And so then we said, hey, use const Caleb, because this is not going to change. The stuff inside of it might change, but this itself is not going to change. And then do Caleb.makeSound with parentheses in there, because it is a function, it's a method. Let's go ahead, refresh our page, and we can see that it says meow. Now, why is this so awesome? Well, because now I can make another person. I can call him Nathan, and we can both make the same sound. And all I did was write one extra line of code, and it took everything in here and applied it to this one extra line of code. Stored it in a variable, in a const called Nathan, and now we will both make the sound of meow. So this will show up twice, meow, meow. You see that 2 there? That means it showed up twice. Let's go ahead and undo that. Now let's go ahead and add some default values. So let's say a person needs a name, an age, and their favorite food. So unlike a function where it would be like name, age, and food, we sort of do this, but we have to go kind of the long way for this. So we create a new function, a new method in here called constructor. And this is a magic function name. You can actually see that it's pink. That is a reserved word. That is a keyword. And then we can pass in these values in here. So we can say, what is the person's name? What is the person's age? What is the person's favorite food? This is a function. It just doesn't say function in front of it, but this is a function. And then we could say console.log name, age, food. And let's go ahead and throw the default values in here. So my name is going to be Caleb, my age is going to be 30, and my favorite food is going to be za. Refresh, it says Caleb 30 za. So now we actually have put values into our new class. We could go ahead and create a new one. Let's get rid of make sound, we don't need that. New person, this one's going to be Nathan. And he's going to be 28, and his favorite food is going to be a salad. And we're going to see Caleb 30 pizza, Nathan 28 salad. And we could do this over and over and over again. And anytime we add more code in here, this is going to affect both of these equally, which is really nice. So now we're writing one piece of code that can affect multiple sections of a website or multiple pieces of functionality. Now, what if I wanted this to say, Caleb says to, and then whatever the food is. Well, unfortunately, because this is an object, we can't just say food. And we can't just say name. This just simply is not going to work. So let's go ahead, do Caleb.makeSound, make yummer sound. Let's actually fix up that syntax there, save that, and refresh, and food is not defined. Although food is here, we gave it here, we even passed it in here and here, but for whatever reason, our code is saying food is not defined. And that is, again, where this idea of the this keyword comes in. So in our magic constructor method here, we can do this.name is equal to name, this.age is equal to, we could cast it if we wanted to, age, this.food is equal to food, and we can get rid of that. And what this is saying is, hey, there is a property in this person class called name. There's another one called age, and there's another one called food. And so when we pass in our parameters into this person class, Caleb30pizza, this is going to say, oh, okay, well, yeah, sure, I understand that these are all being passed in to the first function, but also make these available through the entire class. So now I could change this to this.name says food to, says to this.food rather. And let's put this on multiple lines because we can. And so now this will say, Caleb says to pizza. And again, all I'm doing here is saying const Caleb is equal to a brand new person class. The name is Caleb, the age is 30, favorite food is pizza. And again, that just matches up here, just like a regular function. It just happens to be this one has to be called constructor. Let's go ahead and refresh this. And it says Caleb says to pizza. And again, the key here really is the this keyword. This is what allows you to transport this variable to any other function inside of the person class. But if it helps, I find this actually helped me when I was originally learning this way back in the day. It sort of looks like this. Name is equal to whatever the name is going to be. This.age is equal to whatever the age is going to be. And this.food is equal to whatever the food is going to be. And all this is saying, hey, there's a variable outside of this function scope called this.name, and just assign it to whatever this is. There's another one called this.age. Assign it to whatever we want it to be, age. And this.food. And so basically, think of it like this. We're just taking a variable from a higher scope and changing the value of it. Only we don't have to write that out. And then if we wanted to, we could also come down here and we could say Nathan.makeSound, make numbers sound. Refresh our page. This will say Caleb says to pizza. The next one's also going to say Nathan says to salad. Just like that. Now this may not seem super useful at this point in time, but as your logic grows, it makes sense to group things that are together. So instead of having an array, an object, and a bunch of functions for one single particular person, and then copying and pasting over and over and over again for a second and a third and fourth person, we could wrap all of this together because it's all related into a class and then just say, hey, use a new person. We can even extend this down the road if we wanted to do additional things. So we could say that this is the base, but then if we wanted to say if person is part of the military, they have extra functions or extra features. We're not going to get into that in this video. This basically wraps up the entire class lesson. What I would like you to do though is give this a shot. Create a class, create a magic constructor function. You can take any parameters that you want. You're going to definitely want to use the this keyword, and then create a function, another function, doesn't matter what it's called, and try to access, for example, this.food. Even though we did not pass food into here, we were able to get it by saying this.food because this refers to the entire class itself. Lastly, instantiate your class by saying const your name is equal to new person or whatever your class is going to be about, and then execute the method in there. That function, mine was called make sound. You can execute yours with your name dot your function name and then parentheses. This is also one of those ideas that is a big hurdle for programmers to get over, but once you learn about object-oriented programming and it starts to make a lot more sense to you, life gets a lot easier as a developer, and you jump from that beginner or that junior status to an intermediate status because you start to understand how data relates to itself or to other functions or how to group things together, and it all just starts to come together. So definitely give this a shot. And hey, if you have questions, don't forget, there's a comment section down below. I'm happy to help at any time. Please ask questions if you need any assistance.